Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast, episode number 156. Jeremy Ballantyne and Johnny Brown. In Pursuit 365, deer hunting the Northeast, Vermont, New Hampshire, and the Midwest. Please support our sponsors as they make this show possible. Today's show is sponsored by Morse's Sporting Goods. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
I'm Fred Eichler, and you're listening to my favorite podcast on iTunes, Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
Hi, this is Shane Mahoney from Conservation Visions Incorporated, and I'm listening now to one of my favorite hunting podcasts, Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast.
Hey guys, this is Kelvin Wilcox here at Valpo Products, a favorite deer hunting podcast with Jay and Dusty. Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast.
Welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. My name is Jay, and you know what? I can't thank you enough for joining us once again, as you do each and every single week. Right here on the podcast. You know, I sit here in the studio and I think about all the diehard deer hunting fans that are probably listening to this show, and you know, and certainly the downloads reflect that. But it's humbling, and you know, we work hard to make sure that we bring you good content each and every week. We try to find interesting stories and good people and diehard deer hunting fans who have the skill sets that we like to dissect and find out what these world-class deer hunters are doing so that you can use it too. So thank you for joining us and pushing play and giving me your ear for 1 hour. One of the other big-time diehard deer hunting fans that we have access to each and every week, and you know, this is actually a very special thing, is Dusty Phillips from Ohio, and he's sitting right here in the studio with us as we're recording this show. Dusty, what's going on?
Oh, it's a great day to be alive, Jay. It's one day closer to whitetail season here in Ohio, and it's something that I look forward to every year. You?
That's true. And, you know, it's July, and it's hot, and, you know, we're getting some of those really yucky days that you get sometimes in September, you know, early season, deer season, sometimes that you get those warm snaps that come in. And what's interesting about it is that when deer season ends, the last thing that you would associate with deer hunting is the heat and the humidity of the summer. But in fact, it's a good indicator and it's right around the corner because September is only 2 months away.
Right on, for sure. I did see a really nice buck out feeding in some soybeans here in Ohio. I think it was yesterday, as a matter of fact. And boy, they're starting to get some really nice antler growth and seeing progress. And it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, it's the cameras are showing some nice progress on some of these deer that are coming in from across the country. It's fantastic. So it's got to get you a little pumped up right now to think that deer season is right there around the corner. And just awesome, man. Just awesome.
Yeah, no doubt. I know a lot of people that are just like us that are listening, and they're ready for it. Mm-hmm. I've missed it since the day it went out last year.
Right. And we filled the gap with some turkey season there. And, of course, you came up to the turkey hunt with us, and you had come up prior to do some deer hunting, and we went down to do some deer hunting with you. And we've talked about this a little bit. What was your opinion about the deer hunting in New Hampshire? Now, be honest.
There's deer hunting in New Hampshire?
Well, there is hunting, absolutely. We hunt the deer. But your experience, I mean, you were only here for a few days, but what was your experience while you were here?
The deer have so much territory to hide in. That's probably what made it really tough to get a visual on any deer, period. I didn't lay an eye on a deer while I was there for deer rifle, and you know, it kind of shocked me, really. Here in Ohio, we can usually get on a deer within the first 24 hours. But there, it's a whole different program. New Hampshire is a different monster as far as whitetail hunting. There's so much woods there, Jay, that they have the opportunity to get away from you. And they do. They get up on the mountains and they're gone, you know, unless you're just a full-blown hiker that can just go all day long and nonstop all day and just pray that you bump into one.
Yep. What was your opinion about the terrain?
Oh, it's the flattest, smoothest, most easiest walking stuff I've ever been on. It's probably in the top 3 worst whitetail hunts I've ever been on as far as physically challenging.
Okay.
I'm by far no skinny feller, but I'm by far not completely out of shape though. And it was tough, no doubt about it. I mean, you guys walk the miles, and I kind of laid back for the drives because it, not for being lazy, but for navigational skills. And I definitely don't need to be lost in New Hampshire woods. Right. That's a fact.
Right.
When you're 40 miles away from the nearest town and up 10 miles up a mountainside, it's not quite worth the being lost factor.
Right. I agree. That could be the difference between life and death in some scenarios. And that was one of the things that I think we recognize is that it wasn't so much, not that you were out of shape, but you weren't really expecting the hilly terrain. And today you could definitely handle that because you know what to expect. It was more of a mental thing, I think, overall. Yeah,
I think it really was. Now, turkey season, I got more comfortable while I was there. I knew what it was and didn't, I think I'd come back out and do a lot better next trip to New Hampshire in the woods, just because the fact that, it was all brand new to me. And it's just like, wow, this is a lot of timber,
The navigation thing on the big mountains, the big intimidating mountains, especially if you've never had to navigate that way, will play with your head constantly. Like, oh man, if I go up there, I may never come back.
Yeah, it did. And the fact that no cell service for one,
right?
And GPS works sometimes there.
Yep, if you get enough clear, because there's even on the mountains, there's plenty of trees to cover over your signal.
Right, so you get here in Ohio and you pull up a navigational GPS handheld unit and you're pulling like 7-8 satellites. You get to New Hampshire and you're lucky to pull one.
Right, yep.
Just a whole different ball game there. You're used to Ohio, flat, small woods. You get down south, there's some bigger timber, but there's not really that scare factor of not being able to find your way out.
Exactly. Yeah, and the two guys that we are having on the show today, by request, we've had quite a few requests to cover a little bit more of the Northeast style hunting, something I'm familiar with. You're familiar with it now, and you're right. If having a cell phone with all their GPS technology is fantastic until you don't have cell coverage, and it might give you your location as far as your coordinates. But if you have no reference point on a map, then you can't really figure that out. It'll have a compass. You can figure which direction to go, which is super important. But what if that shuts down? The little pin on compasses that you can put on your shirt are lifesavers. And you wouldn't think that such a 25-cent device is so important, but it actually has gotten me out of some situations where I had no cell phone. I had a backup compass, and my GPS wouldn't get any signal because I was in too much cover. That alone, just getting you in the right direction, always being familiar with your territory, are two things that Jeremy Ballantyne and Johnny Brown from In Pursuit 365 have grown up on, because they grew up in Vermont and New Hampshire as well. And you saw lots of the mountains of Vermont as you traveled into New Hampshire, which is some of the most beautiful country in the world.
No doubt about it.
And these guys have been together for a while now, videotaping all their hunts, and they've actually progressed out to the Midwest where you are, and they've gone up into the big West, out west, into the big mountains out there, and that's where they, I think, prefer to hunt. But we're kind of bringing them back home, and we're getting their perspective on hunting the Northeast this week. But before we turn to Jeremy Ballantyne and Johnny Brown from In Pursuit 365, let's turn to Jim Keller with the Deer News.
For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News. In our first story, Penn State Department of Ecosystem Science and Management's Deer Forest Study. Researchers from Penn State, U.S. Geological Survey, Pennsylvania Game Commission, and Pennsylvania DCNR Bureau of Forestry will be monitoring deer populations and forest changes in the Rothrock, Bald Eagle, and Susquehannock state forests in Pennsylvania. By carefully monitoring deer populations and diversity and growth rates of forests in these areas, this study will lead to a better understanding of the complex relationship between the state's deer herd and their forests. Deer are an important part of Pennsylvania's forests. However, too many deer can change forests in ways we do not like, for example, by eating too many seedlings of some tree species. But deer are not the only issue. Forest managers have to deal with problems such as invasive plants, insect outbreaks, soil acidity, and tree diseases. 4 study areas ranging in size from 25 to 40 square miles have been selected. One pair of study areas is in the center of the state in the Rothrock and Bald Eagle State Forests, and one pair is in the north in the Susquehannocks State Forest. Deer in these study areas will be managed differently with the help of hunters. Forest conditions will be monitored to see how they respond to real-world deer and forest management activities. During the study, researchers from Penn State, the U.S. Geological Survey, the Pennsylvania Game Commission, and the Pennsylvania DCNR Bureau of Forestry will carefully monitor deer populations and changes in the species mix and growth rates of plants in the study areas. There are 4 goals and objectives for this study to address the information needs and research questions of each collaborator. They are: 1. Test the assumption that categorical deer impact levels accurately reflect the effect of deer browsing on forest conditions, and identify modifications that could improve the accuracy of monitoring programs of forest conditions in relation to deer browsing. 2. Evaluate the effectiveness of the methodology used to increase antlerless harvests in a local area. 3. Monitor hunter behavior and attitudes in response to changes in deer abundance. And 4. Test the ability of DCNR's Vegetation Impact Protocol to detect changes in vegetation in response to changes in deer abundance. If you hunt deer in any of the areas where the study is being performed, the team would like to hear about your deer hunting experiences. For more information about this study, including how to register to receive the Hunter Questionnaire, please visit ecosystems.psu.edu/research/projects/deer. We will include this website in our show notes. Texas says 13 new cases of deer wasting disease found. This article was originally written by Tim Easton of the Austin American-Statesman. 13 new cases of chronic wasting disease were discovered in white-tailed deer in a South Texas breeding facility, Texas Parks and Wildlife officials said Friday. The new instances of the neurological condition brings the total to 25 cases since the disease was found in a deer at a Medina County breeding operation last year. The new cases, which were found Wednesday at a different Medina County facility, represent the highest rate of chronic wasting disease found at any Texas breeding operation. The state agency didn't specify which of the many breeding operations had the new cases. Of 33 recent samples tested, 13 came back positive for chronic wasting disease. The Texas Animal Health Commission and the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department will work with the owner of the facility where the new cases were found to come up with a plan to gauge the extent of the disease within the breeding operation. As we mentioned in our previous podcast, the Texas Parks and Wildlife Commission adopted new rules to combat chronic wasting disease. The new regulations could put a strain on many of the state's 1,300 deer breeding businesses. With the Commission's unanimous vote Monday, deer breeders will have to comply with increased regulation. There will be limited movement of breeder deer across the state, increased post-mortem testing for chronic wasting disease, and more live testing for the disease as well. Pursuit Channel HD signs carriage agreements with Verizon and CenturyLink. This article was originally reported by deeranddeerhunting.com. The quest by Pursuit Channel to become America's most important provider of independently produced outdoor programming took another giant step forward in 2016 when Fios by Verizon and Prism TV by CenturyLink signed separate carriage agreements to make Pursuit Channel in full high definition available to all their respective subscribers in the United States. The on-air rollout of Pursuit Channel HD to millions of customers who enjoy Fios by Verizon's state-of-the-art all-fiber cable television internet service was completed July 1, 2016. Pursuit HD on Prism by CenturyLink begins later this summer. Pursuit Channel is available in over 40 million U.S. television households. Pursuit is the only audited outdoor television network viewable to all DirecTV and Dish Network subscribers and now has availability to all Fios by Verizon subscribers. Prominent series premieres and all new episodes of long-running television brands featured on the Pursuit for 2016 include Remington Country, Wallhanger TV, Ducks Unlimited TV, NWTF 365, Gamekeepers of Mossy Oak, and Canadian Whitetail TV, just to name a few. Another Michigan county has been added to the CWD management zone. This article was originally reported by Nicholas Grenke of the Ionia Sentinel Standard newspaper. Ionia County, Michigan was placed on the Deer Chronic Wasting Disease Management Zone Tuesday by the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. However, no deer found in Ionia County have tested positive for the disease. The reason for the expanded management zone is because 3 of the diseased deer were found in South Clinton County, which neighbors Ionia County. With the detection of CWD-positive deer in the southern part of Clinton County, we need to better understand the magnitude of the disease in those areas, said Chad Stewart, a Michigan DNR deer specialist. Expanding our surveillance to include these areas is key to this point, when we need help from landowners and hunters within the expanded zone to help us with this effort. Ionia County hunters will not be required to bring their deer to a DNR check station, but they are highly encouraged to. All roadkill deers a person wishes to salvage now need to be tested at a DNR check station. Due to being added to the management zone, it is now illegal for hunters to bait deer with apples, salt lick, or by other ways. To combat the disease, the DNR will also be lowering the cost of antlerless deer licenses from $20 to $12 and will have an additional antlerless deer hunt season September 17th and 18th at the same time as the Michigan Youth Hunt. The disease heavily impacts the deer population. According to the Michigan DNR CWD contingency plan, since the disease was first discovered near Boulder, Colorado in the late 1980s, the local deer population has declined 45%. However, when the disease was discovered in New York in 2005, it was contained and did not spread, according to the same plan. To find DNR check stations this hunting season, visit www.michigan.gov. The DNR recommends that if anyone notices a deer looking sickly, thin, or behaving strangely, to call the DNR Wildlife Disease Lab at 517-336-5030 or fill out and submit an online observation report at www.michigan.gov/DNR. That concludes this week's edition of the Big Buck Registry's Deer News. If you have any ideas for future topics or have questions about any of these topics, please email me at jim@bigbuckregistry.com. For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News.
Thanks to Jim Keller for the Deer News. Without further ado, here is Jeremy Ballantyne and Johnny Brown.
Jeremy Ballantyne and Johnny Brown, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. Cheers, guys. What's going on?
Not much. Thanks for having us.
I'm psyched, man. This is great. Now, to set the stage, and this is all audio, so you can't really visualize this unless I paint the picture. This is one of the first outdoor podcast recordings we've ever done. Hey, let's get outside and talk some deer hunting in my screen house, where we are surrounded by all my license plates and a couple of license plates from Ohio, some deer I've killed that are now in the European skull mount, all my license plates from New Hampshire. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Jeremy. Where are you from?
Well, I born and raised in southern Vermont, right near Mount Snow, Stratton ski area.
Yep.
That area, Windham County, Vermont. Grew up in a hunting family. I kind of got bit by the bug a little bit harder than anybody else in the family,
Interesting.
so to speak.
Okay.
Really into bow hunting, right from probably in my early teens all the way through. I pretty much fell in love with bow hunting, and if I had a gun in my hands, it was when I was tracking deer in the snow. But started going to Colorado in my 20s. All through my 20s, I'd spend the entire September elk hunting in Colorado, bow hunting, and that really is what got the fire going, if you will.
Okay.
And running a video camera ever since I've been 14, trying to get the hunts on video. And
really
started out with turkeys. And
how old are you now?
I'm 36.
You're okay, so that's a decent amount of time and back in time, to start running a video camera.
Yeah,
especially at 14. I mean, I don't know about you, Johnny, but I wasn't really all that into videography when I was 14.
No,
right?
Not at all.
So what got you into doing videography in the first place, much less hunting or shooting your hunts?
Really just watching, I guess my earliest inspiration for videoing my hunts would probably have to be like the early Primo's hunting videos.
Right.
Like I'd watch Primo's, all the Truth series, the first ones, and I was just like, man, that's really cool to have everything on video, and you get to relive the hunt. And then once I started videoing, I started realizing the challenge that was involved in trying to capture it on film.
Yeah.
You had to go about your entire hunt with a totally different mindset. Like if you were trying to video a deer hunt, you could kill him out of that tree right there, but you're not going to get any video footage because the deer's all of a sudden just going to be there. And same with turkeys. You could kill a good woods bird, but you're not going to get very much footage of them at all. You got to kind of
right.
It's just a totally different mindset of hunting, and I appreciated the challenge because I had such a passion for bow hunting. Mm-hmm. I would handicap myself and bow hunt even when it was gun season a lot. So it kind of went hand in hand with bow hunting and videoing.
That's interesting. Now I'm 45, and the older I get, the more I want to bow hunt, just bow hunt.
Yep.
And I always feel like the more I learn about the species I'm trying to kill, the closer I'm able to get.
Absolutely.
And at this point, I'm like, why do I even carry a gun? Other than maybe, when I'm on, I find a buck or whatever game I'm looking at, and it's thick. I mean, it's real thick. An arrow's just going to go flying off. Other than that, I like getting close. And to this day, and every year in, year out, the more I want to carry my bow.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you were doing this at 14.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's I don't know. There's something about the flight of the arrow,
Yeah.
And that rush, like when a good buck's coming by, or a bull elk, or a turkey strutting up, or whatever. The rush you feel when you get to full draw and you got away with it, and then you pull it off, you know, and you pulled it off with archery equipment. It's just a lot more satisfying.
It really is
to me.
Yeah. How long did you have to work at it to perfect your bow hunting skills?
It's always a learning process. It never ends, It's
even now.
Yeah, even now, you learn something every single year that you're hunting. It's if you're not learning something, you're not hunting hard enough. You're just doing the same thing over and over again. You gotta constantly push yourself and try different things, and it's constantly a learning process. And you got to learn to accept failure, know, and know that it's all part of the process. You're gonna miss opportunities hunting with a bow that you normally would have harvested that animal with a gun.
Yeah. How do you handle the missed shot, or there's always going to be a bad shot of some sort. It could be a miss completely. How do you mentally get over that?
You just got to be able to, if it didn't bother you, you wouldn't be a human with a conscience.
Right.
If you wound an animal or you miss one, you work how hard you had to work for that opportunity. But you just got to let it go and know that you hunt hard and you're determined. You're gonna get another opportunity.
Right. One of the things, and this is just human nature, is that you work hard to get the shot, and then you miss the shot, or you don't take the best shot that you were hoping for, or you hit a tree branch that you didn't see, or whatever it was. That's kind of hard to overcome, and as I think as an older hunter, you know that's just part of the game.
Yeah, as the years go by, you just know that's part of the game, and that that when you're successful, it just makes success all that much sweeter. You know?
Gotcha. Johnny, let's turn to you. Where are you from?
Yeah, originally I'm born and raised southern New Hampshire. I grew up in the Nashua area, spent some time, abroad in my college years, and then spent a little bit of time down in eastern Connecticut with work. But my home is New Hampshire, so I'm back as of the last 4 years. I'm back here permanently.
Gotcha. And growing up, how was hunting introduced into your life?
To be honest with you, it really wasn't. I spent a lot of time fishing with my father growing up. He grew up in a household where my grandfather did hunt, but my father just really wasn't something that he was active doing. My parents were always 100% supportive of anything I wanted to do, within reason, and they always encouraged me to, pick things up and challenge myself and, get involved with stuff. And we had some very good family friends of ours who was actually an avid waterfowl hunter.
Okay.
Call the guy Uncle Dave. So, he would take me out from, I got to say, it was early middle school. We would be out every Saturday during the waterfowl season between, him and other family members that we would go out with. We would absolutely clean house waterfowl hunting. And it was one of those things. I did have an uncle that lived down south in Georgia, and I'd go down there once a year and visit him and rifle hunt for deer and wild pigs. And it just was one of these things that stayed in my system. I was very similar to Jeremy as a kid, on the weekends watching hunting on TV and, seeing these guys bow hunting. And it just was always in the back of my mind that, I started off as a gun hunter. But I think given the background that I have from my mother and father of always challenging myself, I always knew bow hunting was going to be a huge challenge. And it was just always one of those things where I got to get to that. The season's that much longer. It's more times in the woods. You're not going to be able to harvest that animal, as I don't want to say easy because I don't want to take away, people who are rifle hunting, but I think it's more of a challenge to bow hunt. And it's just always been something that I think Jeremy might agree with this over the last few years, since he and I have spent so much time together hunting. I really think that I could, label myself as really primarily just a bow hunter. It's something that it's always a challenge, very similar to what you said. You always want to get closer, and once you learn game and you're learning more, I think that if you're spending time in the woods and you're not learning on a daily basis, you're not doing it right. And, I just think that, really, I mean, I'm kind of rambling on, so I apologize about that. Going from where I started off as a bow hunter, as a hunter, to kind of where I'm at now, there was really no background whatsoever, and I've really progressively, as time went on, kind of picked things up.
You found a mentor through the Dave,
right?
Uncle Dave.
He's not. He's my mother and father's really good friend from college, and it just was one of these people we just called Uncle Dave. Growing up. So
Uncle Dave kind of got you started.
Yep,
kind
absolutely.
of planted that seed, and you progressed from there. You self-teaching yourself about bow archery and bow hunting itself.
Everything I did archery hunting, I learned on my own. And
gotcha.
Kind of was something you had asked about Jeremy. I'm always learning. I mean, I'm constantly picking up the phone and calling Jeremy, hey, I'm thinking about this with my setup. What do you think?
Yeah.
Or I'm talking to friends, or I'm doing trial and error. So I can honestly say I'm constantly learning when it comes to archery.
Okay. How'd you guys meet?
We had a mutual friend that actually was doing some filming with me to start with. Through a mutual friend, buddy of ours, Armand. And he was kind of a friend of a friend, and I knew Armand liked to video. And that's... and he was really good friends with Johnny, so that's how we kind of all met up. And
Gotcha. So you figured you both had skill sets or similar interest, passion about the outdoors, hunting, and you started this group, or I guess it's a film company at this point, right?
Yeah. Jeremy actually started it several years ago. Yep.
Gotcha. So Jeremy, you started in Pursuit 365, and I want to get into that a little bit more in a little bit. But so you started this back when? Back when you were 14?
No, that was. In Pursuit really took on the name in the early 2000s when I produced a DVD with Tom Blaze through Great Northern Productions.
Sure. Yep.
Turkey hunting DVD. That
Gotcha.
was kind of like I don't remember the exact date. I should, but I don't exactly remember the date. But
that was the beginning.
That was when I kind of did the name. Other than that, I was just videoing for fun.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. So. You guys have both hunted the Northeast, and we've been getting a lot of questions lately about hunting the Northeast. People have started hunting recently, and they're from the Northeast. They want to know more about hunting the Northeast because they haven't traveled outside, and it might be a while before they get there. So their primary hunting grounds, Northeast territories, could be Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine. So I wanted to touch on some of your experiences in the Northeast and then compare and contrast that to what it's like to hunt other parts of the country, because you guys have been all over the country hunting.
Correct.
So if there's anybody that can answer that question, it's you guys.
Yep.
So let's start about the Northeast. What does the Northeast mean to you when it comes to hunting?
I think it's I think the word challenge is the right word to use. In talking to a lot of people, we're hunting across the board, across the country, we'll have people that say, where are you guys from? We'll say New Hampshire, and you kind of get that look on their face. I mean, these are people we're talking to that are also hunting as well, and they get that look like, what do you guys have up there to hunt? It's really not well known for being the destination place or the go-to place to hunt. So I guess I would use the word, challenging as a word to describe, hunting in the Northeast.
I don't get anybody that wants to come to New Hampshire to deer hunt.
Right.
Unless you're from Massachusetts
or Vermont,
right?
There is a serious plus side to growing up in the Northeast. I think it definitely made me a better hunter.
Absolutely.
Having to deal with hunting pressure of all sorts. I mean, everything that you can imagine. All sorts of hunting pressure. Dealing with animals that are heavily hunted. Low deer densities. All the challenges.
Yep.
In Vermont, we face our own challenges with the way their seasons are timed and all the different obstacles that every state presents its own different set of obstacles. But I think in the Northeast, they definitely present the hardest set of obstacles.
One of the things that I noticed, and it wasn't really spelled out to me until the last couple of years when Dusty had come up from Ohio, and I hadn't hunted Ohio yet, and he came up to deer hunt, and he says, wow, this is kind of mountainous up here. And it is. But as you grow up in it, you realize, and you don't realize, that your navigational skills are top notch.
Absolutely.
Right?
Right. So and for fun, I'll hunt with, as you hunt with your friends in New Hampshire. Sometimes you just want to go, you got a light snow and you want to catch a track. But it's not anywhere where you can take a vehicle or four-wheeler. You're not going to try to cut a track and then follow it like the Benoits might. But you'll be on the top of one peak, and you look at a peak 2 miles out. I said, you go that way, you go that way, and I'll go down the middle, and I'll meet you on that peak for lunch at noon. And you go. To Dusty, that would freak him out.
Yeah, he wouldn't be at that peak for lunch.
No, he would not. Right.
Yeah.
So your navigational skills automatically, when you're from Vermont or New Hampshire, are pretty darn good.
Yeah, your sense of direction is I would agree with you 100%. I mean, Jeremy and I have both been out to Idaho. You do bring a GPS with you. You put it on, you mark where your drop camp is, and then you go. But I mean, I can say we probably both can attest that how often do you actually go and check your GPS when you need to go back? Your sense of direction is pretty spot on. I would agree with you 100%.
Yeah, it's kind of and it's something that you don't realize until you start going to other parts of the country and talking to people and having people come up here and say, "Whoa, what is that all about?"
Yeah, there's no big fields. It's like
it's not flat.
They get a little claustrophobic.
Right, right. So, I think that's one of the big things that you kind of notice. The other thing is you get snow up here. That is, and you're not going to, because of some of the land use laws, especially in the Northeast, is that you have access to lots of land, and you get to roam as much as you want unless it's posted.
Correct.
And not that you shouldn't get landowner permission otherwise, but the laws are written in a certain way, and it's kind of an accepted tradition in New Hampshire, and I think it's in the same in Vermont. I'm not positive.
Yeah. If that land isn't posted, people hunt it.
It's public land,
yep.
Right? And it's not designated public land; it just is,
right.
Because it's not stated otherwise by the landowner. So, how is that particular aspect different hunting out in Idaho or some of the other states you've hunted in?
I mean, I'd say in Idaho, we're hunting, 600,000 acres, you know what I mean?
That's national.
It's national forest, so for us, where we're going, I mean, there are spots that we'll hunt out there that, we have a friend that lives out there that, if he has permission for us to go there, then that's his permission. We're there on his behalf.
Right.
But when you're out in Idaho, it's kind of, uncharted territory. If it's national forest, have at it. I don't
kind of see it the more where it takes an influence is the Midwest.
Yeah, absolutely.
All those private farms.
Right.
I hunted Ohio for quite a few years, even solo. Would go out there and knock on doors in the summertime and get my way onto a piece of property by giving them maple syrup and cheddar cheese.
Nice.
in a handshake,
which is a great thing to bring from Vermont.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And you do not see people trespass out there. During the bow season out there in the Midwest, even if it's just knock on doors property, people respect property lines. If there's a fence, you do not cross it.
That's right.
That's a property line.
Even if there's not. I mean, Jeremy and I had a situation 2 years ago when we were in Ohio. I shot a buck, ran onto the neighboring property, and we put every effort into contacting that landowner to get that deer back. And by the time we could have easily gone onto his property, trespass, grabbed that deer. I mean, it was visible. There were posted signs there, and you just don't do that. I mean, if it was our property and someone did that to us without permission, we'd be very upset. And I ended up full circle. We ended up contacting the landowner, ended up seeing the deer, and he wouldn't give us the deer. So, we're in comparison, I think it's spot on. Every state is different, every situation. And,
right.
Deer hunting as itself has become more of a, I would say, religion to most people that, you're only as good as the ground you hunt on. And if you got good ground in the Midwest, people don't want people on there. And if it's not posted,
right,
you better be asking permission to get on there.
That's right.
Yeah. I'm sorry, if it is posted, regardless out there.
Yeah. If you need permission, period. Mm-hmm. Of all the states you've hunted in, which are your favorites?
As far as bow hunting goes, my favorite bow hunting animal is still an elk. If I had to choose one animal to hunt every fall and just that one animal, it would be a bull elk.
That's it.
Whether it be Colorado or,
right.
This fall we plan on going to Idaho. I've hunted elk and mule deer, but there's something about bugle and bull elk.
I haven't done that yet
because I'm a turkey fanatic. Right. So I love any animal that I can call to, and it can call back to me. But elk hunting is definitely where my heart is.
I haven't gone elk hunting yet, but to me, it's like deer hunting, but blend in the turkey aspects, and that's a mind-blowing experience.
It's a 600. It's a 600-pound turkey.
It's
you're communicating with an animal.
That's what I
the
think
difference
too.
Between deer hunting is you get that adrenaline rush when you shoot that big buck, but you're locating a bird and you're working them. You're locating that that elk
Yeah.
on that opposite ridge and you're working them.
It's that same kind of thing. You guys can speak from experience. I'm just living vicariously through you guys right now.
Go.
That's a big reason why I guided moose hunters in the state of Vermont for over 15 years.
Yeah.
And the reason I did that was because that was as close to elk hunting as I could possibly get in the state of Vermont. Because I had an animal that would call back to me, and they leave the same kind of sign that elk do, and they're huge, and it's a lot of fun to hunt a big bull moose.
Nice.
It was as close as I could get to elk hunting. So it was always a rush for me if I called in a big bull moose, whether I shot it or not. I was sometimes more excited than the guy that did.
Gotcha. So you would say that where the elk are, those are your favorite states
Absolutely.
to hunt. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's mostly the out west. Anything in Kentucky or anything like that where they're starting?
I've shot deer all over the country, and whitetails are great. It's whatever most people learn to hunt and everything, but the west is really where it's at. I really want to get back to hunting elk, mule deer, start working on the 29.
Okay.
North American big game species.
Gotcha.
I've shot pretty decent sized bears and bull moose. I shot with a bow in Vermont, so now I want to start working on different species.
Gotcha. Okay.
I want to go antelope hunting. I want to go into the Northwest Territories and hunt caribou. I want to go all over.
Right. Gotcha.
Eventually hunt a sheep species of some sort. Probably Alaska is going to be the most one that's in my price range. But
Gotcha.
That's definitely down the road. Yeah.
Johnny, what about you? Where's your favorite state?
I'd have to agree with an area where there's elk. I haven't been to Colorado to elk hunt. I did go out to Idaho. I would have to say that's probably my favorite spot to be hunting in the country. Yeah.
Okay.
I've been fortunate to deer hunt multiple states as well, but I would say not to be redundant off of what Jeremy said, I couldn't agree with him more. I had a guy that I was having a conversation with one time, and he said it best. There's too many species out there to hunt more than once. So I've been fortunate, been able to hunt deer, I've shot bear, moose, elk. There's something about elk that's going to keep bringing me back. But I'd like to kill a mountain lion and a few other species.
Yeah, mountain lion would be great. Yeah. I want to get into some of your tactics and strategies for hunting the Northeast in a little bit, but I want to go a little deeper on some of the subjects we talked about pre-chat. And what are some of the issues that you think are keeping hunters from coming to New Hampshire or to New England to hunt? And what are some of the weird nuances, like you told me about in Vermont, that you think just aren't quite right?
Well, in Vermont, there's many things in Vermont that I would like to see changed, whether they ever would or not. It's basically I think our biggest obstacle is the timing of our seasons.
Yeah.
We have a big obstacle as far as bow hunters go in the state of Vermont with, if you had to pick the 3 hardest weeks out of the year to try to find a mature buck moving on his feet during daylight under natural movement, it would be Vermont bow season.
Right.
They timed that perfect. There's no season going on those last couple weeks of October and the first week of November.
Right. So
there's no deer season.
There are 3 weeks that there's no deer season in Vermont. Period.
All the pre-rut, we're sitting out. I'm in a different state.
That's weird to me. Do you agree with that?
I think that's bizarre.
Isn't that strange?
That's absolutely bizarre. Yeah, absolutely.
And how long has this been going on? Have you done any
That's been ever
forever.
since. That's why if you look at all my big deer that I've shot in the state of Vermont, they've all been post-rut, muzzleloader season with snow on the ground, tracking them,
right.
Benoit style, if you will.
Right. That's just weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. What other issues do you see in New Hampshire?
I think there's a combination of things that are going on here for challenges that I see. A little bit different than what Jeremy sees, given that our season length is, but in slightly similar to what he has. I think one of the biggest obstacles we have that people don't come here is we have a gun season that falls right in the middle of the rut. Yeah, if you look at some of the neighboring states, well, I wouldn't compare ourselves to Vermont, but our gun season starts usually around the 1st of November, October 31st timeframe, and runs all the way through the month of November. You're shooting a lot of deer in that time frame. I would say, based off of what I would think, a majority of your hunters are gun hunters here in the state of New Hampshire. I think another big challenge that we have is this is just opinion-based. I have a lot of respect for the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department and the biologists there, but I think we give out way too many tags. That doesn't necessarily fall into play in other units within the state, but down where I live in southern New Hampshire, we were having this discussion earlier. You can shoot 2 does in Unit M. You can shoot 2 bucks with a bow in Unit M. you can shoot one deer with a firearm tag, and now Unit L, I could be wrong. I know it's at least one antlerless deer, but I believe you might be able to even shoot 2 antlerless deer. So being able to shoot 7 deer in a state where you could go to the Midwest and you look at the quality of the deer that they have there, you can shoot 1 buck. If you decide to shoot a spike as he walks by opening day, you're done.
Right.
You are done. You're cashed in for the year. But here you can shoot 2 with a bow and 1 with a gun.
Yep.
So for me, I have a hard time understanding. And I guess the biggest challenge that I see is we have some quality deer here in the state. I mean, between Jeremy and I and a few other friends of ours that we're always communicating throughout the season, I mean, we're running 50-plus trail cameras. We're getting some big bucks on camera, and we're always networking with people. Hey, check out this picture of this buck that I got. We have some awesome deer here.
Yep.
And I just think that I don't see an abundance of browse pressure. I don't see, an abundance of deer. I mean, last year and all the years that I've hunted in New Hampshire, I found, other than opening evening, we had some great success. I find that it was probably one of the hardest years that I've hunted. I didn't see that many deer at all. So I think the challenge that I see is too many tags, which I think really, in turn, the big picture is hunting pressure, down where I'm at.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about hunting Vermont and hunting New Hampshire. I hunt New Hampshire. Actually, I've technically never hunted Vermont. I think it's weird. But I'm like a New Hampshire boy. I hunt New Hampshire. I'll venture out to Ohio, Vermont, or Virginia, Maryland.
Probably never Vermont.
I don't know. I'm trying to get some pointers from Jeremy here.
You come to Vermont to shoot a good bear, or if you get drawn for a moose tag.
Okay,
that's pretty much. If you like to track deer, but you only get 2 or 3 good days to do that. You kind of got to live there and take the opportunity when it comes.
Are you guys both guides as well? No.
Jeremy's not in New Hampshire. I am not. No,
you're not.
And Jeremy can explain more about how the laws are in Vermont. I guess you could technically say.
Vermont, they're pretty much the only time I need a guide permit and insurance is if I'm guiding on national forest.
Wow.
But if I'm guiding on private land or state land, then I'm all good to go.
I believe
no kidding.
I believe if he had 2 clients and he needed help, I think myself as a I could come up and guide for him, but I wouldn't need to be permitted to do that.
Just as long as you're not on the national forest.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
And the national forest charges like an outrageous amount for me to guide just 6 days. It's crazy. So you
probably can't make that up with your clientele at that point.
No, so I usually just stay off the national forest when it comes to guiding.
Gotcha. That's fascinating.
But there's a lot of paper company land and different chunks of property where there's moose and stuff.
Okay. So let's talk about deer hunting in Vermont. And I know this isn't your favorite place to hunt necessarily. You're from there, but you probably have the most opportunities to hunt because that's where you live. What are some of the unique aspects of hunting Vermont, and what are some of the strategies, and what's your favorite style when you're hunting?
When it comes to Vermont, I kind of start out the season like I'll get cameras out here beginning of July is when I'll start putting trail cameras out. We don't have a lot of fields where I live. It's mostly all wooded. So I may take a drive around a couple evenings, 2 or 3 times a month or whatever, try to spot a buck just before dark in a field. But I mainly let the cameras do the work for me.
Okay.
In July, right up through September. And then once we know who's drawing moose tags and everything, that gets my cameras even more in the woods in Vermont. And throughout my moose scouting, I'll find a couple good bucks. I'll find a few that are 4.5-year-old or older bucks.
Yeah.
And those are the deer that I'll try to keep tabs on. With all those cameras spread out, once the moose season is over, I'll kind of concentrate those cameras back in there and try to keep tabs on that buck, see if he's still alive, and I'll leave Vermont during the rifle season because I'm usually going to the Midwest where there's a lot better hunting, and it's still bow season, and I'll go to the Midwest. When I come back, I'm checking my cameras. Oh, look at that buck's still alive. If I'm back in Vermont, I'm waiting for snow.
Gotcha.
Because if I don't have any daylight pictures of that deer, and I'll go in there and check it out and stuff, and he's living in there, all I'm waiting for is snow. Because if I have snow, I can kill that deer.
Yep.
Because they're real random in their movements. I mean, I may have him go by that camera once a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever, but that just lets me know he's still in that area. I can kill him.
Yep.
I just can't kill him out of a tree stand.
Right.
And I've killed multiple bucks like that, and pretty good ones for Vermont, by Vermont standards anyways, by just keeping tabs on those deer and not hunting them when it's bad conditions, and then all of a sudden I get 3, 4, 5, 6 inches of snow. I go in there. I know about what area that deer. I know his core area, and it's at the end of the rut. I can find that buck.
Yep.
I find his track. I can get an opportunity at that deer.
Doesn't mean you're going to kill him, but you're going to get something that's probably going to be a shot.
Yeah, I know I'm following that deer's track. I know I'm following the caliber of deer that I want to see.
Right.
Instead of, like all rifle season, it may be warm and there's people out there still hunting and stuff, and you don't have the optimum. You need an edge to kill those big deer in Vermont. They've experienced so much pressure on dry, crunchy leaves. The odds of you walking up that deer on a big mountain range, just walking onto him and getting an opportunity are very slim.
Gotcha.
But with snow, I can walk right into his bedroom.
Okay.
And I can know I'm getting closer to him. There's telltale signs, when you're tracking a deer, you've tracked enough of them, to tell when they're starting to slow down, when they're getting near a bedding area.
Right.
And it's worked for me.
Okay. Would you recommend that to the new guy that's trying to figure out how to hunt the Northeast or specifically Vermont? Would you say that they should wait for snow as well?
I would say that's when, tracking a deer in the snow, you can learn so much about. If you don't run a lot of cameras,
yep.
Really the best way to learn a lot about a buck in the Northeast where I am is through tracking him in the snow.
Yep.
Like I've tracked the same deer. I've hunted him for a couple years in a row and tracked that deer and not killed him. I learned where that deer likes to bed. I learned where that deer likes to go during hunting pressure. If he gets jumped off of this side hill, where he likes to run. You learn funnels and pinch points and mark that on your GPS while you're tracking that deer.
Right.
And then if you are hunting and it's bare ground and you've got a starting point,
yep.
You can go in there to scout, find it, see if there's a good buck in there this year. But if there's bare ground and you want to hunt and you got hunting pressure coming from the other way, hey, last time I was in here, I tracked that buck and he was on that side hill. He ran down and went right along the top of this beaver pond. That's a good, starting point to try to kill that deer.
Right. It's an interesting point that you bring up. And what's interesting is that when you're trying to kill a specific deer, and specifically in New England,
yeah,
if you have access to the property and you kind of know it better than a lot of guys or gals, it's the success of killing that deer may not be that year. It might be a multi-year process.
Absolutely.
Right?
All my biggest deer, I've hunted them 2 to 3 years.
Right.
My biggest deer that I just killed with a muzzleloader 2 years ago, that was the 3rd year I've hunted them.
Right. I have deer that I'm hunting right now that I'm still trying. And hunting, to me, hunting is all year round.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hunting is just there are certain months where you can carry the gun and the rest you can't.
Yep.
But hunting is all year round.
Absolutely.
You're educating yourself on a particular buck, a particular pattern, and during the season, off the season. So I've got bucks that I'm hunting right now that I know I'm learning more about their pattern and I'm closing in. But this is a 36-month process. This isn't just a, hey, let's go out today and kill a deer kind of thing.
No, absolutely. It's it's not for everybody. A lot of people just want what they want out of hunting. They want to go out there, they want to harvest a deer, they want to fill the freezer, and that's it.
Right.
To me, in my home state, I figure I've got all the time in the world to hunt because I live here.
Right.
When I'm back from hunting a different state, if I can wait for optimum conditions to go hunt that deer. It's not like when I go to Ohio, I don't care if it's raining, windy, really cold, really hot, we're hunting. Because we're only there for 10, 11 days. We got
exactly.
Johnny and I sat in a tree, and it was probably 50-mile-per-hour winds this fall. It's like there is no way in hell we'd be hunting right now if we had the choice. But we've only got one more day to hunt. We're going to do it.
Yep.
But that's what I do in Vermont. I just bide my time until I get the right conditions.
Right.
And that one buck that I killed with a muzzleloader, I didn't go out to the Midwest that year. I'd lost my property to people that were leasing and stuff, and for one reason or another, I didn't go out to the Midwest. So I'm just like, well, I'm going to stay in Vermont, and I'm going to hunt throughout the entire rifle season. I hunted this particular buck. I kept getting his picture. I'd see his track everywhere, see his sign. He was rubbing huge trees. That deer was not moving during daylight, and it was really terrible conditions, really warm, not cold, just I needed some cold weather and I needed some snow, and this was the 3rd year I'd hunted him. I had that deer pegged. He was not moving during daylight.
Right.
And I hunted him, I think, 13 days out of the 16-day rifle season. Never saw him.
Right.
And muzzleloader season came, same kind of weather. The night before the last day of muzzleloader season, we got 6 inches of snow. I had that deer dead at 8:30 the next morning.
Right.
I shot him just as he stood up out of his bed. I knew where he was, the basically where on that side hill he was bedded. I walked right in there on his track, took my time, and I had that deer dead with the right conditions.
Right. And that's another very good point.
Yeah.
Is that snow is a Northeast hunter's best friend.
Because you've got huge woods, low deer density, and I mean, in some of that national forest, I've got pictures of awesome bucks, like in the 140s up to 150.
Right.
They come in front of that camera once in 2 months.
Right.
And then I find their sheds in the spring 16 miles from there.
Yep.
It's like, how you going to kill that deer out of a tree stand during daylight? What are your odds? There's nothing to funnel that deer down.
Right.
So it's, I get track and snow. If I find his track, I've got 15 square miles to hunt that deer in.
Right.
All open land.
Right.
And it's just me and him. I got a lot better chance of killing him in those conditions than any other.
I think hunting Vermont and New Hampshire are very similar. I think that the topography of the states are different. I think New Hampshire is more like Maine and Vermont's more like New York.
Sure.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that, Jeremy?
There's 3 different zones in Vermont. Like the southern zone is kind of like the a little bit, we got that big chunk of national forest, Glossenberry Mountain. It's a pretty good wilderness area. And then you get into central Vermont. It's kind of farmland.
Yep.
And then you get into northern Vermont, and it's kind of like Maine up there because it's a lot of logging activities going on.
Yep.
A lot of clear cuts, and
yep.
So you get kind of 3 different habitats in Vermont.
Okay, gotcha.
And I'm kind of stuck down in the southern part where it's all like 30-year-old clear cuts. And
Do you hunt the other parts of Vermont too?
No, I just hunt the southern.
Just
part.
southern. Johnny, let's talk about New Hampshire a little bit.
Sure.
You're walking into New Hampshire deer season. When does your season start? I know it doesn't start the day it opens.
Right.
It starts before that. Where do you start?
So traditionally for myself, in all honesty, I really struggle late season. I find that the best time to get on deer and where I'm at, and it may be just due that I deal with a lot of hunting pressure from other people, that the first week or so of the season when deer are still in their summer patterns, they have shed their velvet, but they're really not dealing with much hunting pressure for me. That's really the time that I try to focus and spend as much time in the woods as I can.
Okay.
I used to be the type of hunter where it was, hey, if you're sitting on the sofa, you're not out killing deer. But I've really kind of changed that mindset in the last few years by, Mark Drury, for example. He has an excellent talk that he does on barometric pressure and weather patterns and cold fronts. And, Jeremy and I ended up killing, I shot a spectacular buck here in New Hampshire this year. And everything that I learned from his podcast, I applied to that situation. We checked 5 cameras that day before we hunted them, and we didn't know what the wind was, or what direction. We almost didn't hunt. So I think with saying, you know what, I don't care, I'm going to be in the woods anyways because, I may not shoot them if I'm at home, I think that's kind of not the right mindset you want to have, especially as a bow hunter.
Yeah. My
seasons usually start with, during late season, my mind starts racing because I'm dealing with the struggles of, sometimes going days and days without seeing deer. So I'm kind of thinking, well, where could I go? If I were a deer, where would I be? The advantage that I have that Jeremy doesn't have is it's a more populated area, so I do have a lot more bottlenecked areas and funnels and whatnot. So I do try to focus my concentration on those areas, especially running trail cameras. I get a lot of pictures of bucks all season long, mostly during nighttime in the October month.
Yep.
November, I get some rut activity that's out there. But if I get pictures of a deer at 9 o'clock in the morning, pre-rut, unfortunately with the pressure that I'm dealing with, 2 days later, or inevitably anywhere you could be, that deer could be long gone.
Right.
I am the type of guy that when I start scouting, I'm very low impact. Where Jeremy doesn't have a lot of fields, I tend to have a lot of fields, big clover plots. Not plots necessarily, but clover fields, hay fields. So I always try to I run as many cameras as I can on those fields. That field right there, those deer are used to human scent. Whether it's the farmer coming out and checking the fields to see when he can hay it, whether there's people out there running their dogs, they're used to human scent. I honestly feel that as soon as you go into those woods, that's their habitat. It's a completely different game.
Right.
As soon as you start going in there and boogering up those woods, I really feel that you're starting to educate an animal, especially here in the Northeast when it's challenging. You get a 4.5, 5.5-year-old buck, he's already on to you because for the last few years he's been seeing that game. I'll say that with that, a lot of my scouting starts end of deer season, meaning the last few weeks where I'm doing a little bit more walking during the gun season to kind of scout new areas. And remember, okay, there's a whole patch of oaks over here. I should find an opportunity to slip in here late summer, check if they got acorns on them, maybe on a really windy day or a rainy day where I can get in and get out, have less scent out there, and just if there's a ton of deer sign there and I end up hunting it that year and I don't have luck, I somehow dialogue it, or I somehow log it for that matter, and know, okay, I've hunted the field the first week, didn't have any luck. Where's the next spot I want to go to based off of the deer sign that I found last year? And I would agree with what you had said earlier. It's a 2-3 year process. Last year I've been back in New Hampshire for 3 years now. The first 2 years I was hunting one particular buck that actually ended up getting shot last year by a very deserving hunter. I was after that deer for 2 years and I didn't fill a buck tag in the state of New Hampshire.
Right.
So it's a game. Yeah, you're learning. You're always learning, and if you're not in the woods, learning something every day, you're not. I don't think you're doing it right. But the one thing that I think a lot of hunters make a mistake that they're doing is, I can't even tell you how many tree stands I own. I do know it's a high dollar investment, but if I understand people like to hunt out of ladder stands. I talk to some people. Yeah, I got a stand set up here, and I go out there and I sit there, but I don't see anything. I think if you're not mobile,
yep.
I think if you're not scouting and you're out and you're active, if I get out of work at 2:00 in the afternoon, that's great. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a day to go hunt.
Yep.
That may be a day to go check cameras, or that may be a day to slip into an area. The weather's not right. Go in with a stand. This is great deer sign. Hang a stand and go in. The buck that we killed this year, I actually never hung a stand in those woods until opening night. We checked all of those cameras. We came up with a general idea of, okay, based off of all the information I have off this deer, from me videotaping him all summer, from me, getting trail camera photos of him, I really think that this is the area that we want to go. And gosh, what did we do? 2:00 that afternoon, we slipped in there, hung a stand, showered, got back, and we killed him at 6:00 at night.
Yeah, I think a major factor in killing that deer, I think, was hanging and hunting that same night.
Yeah,
I think a lot of times if you're getting pictures of a deer and then you know where you want to hang that stand. If you can't get in there and hang that stand ahead of time and get away with it, like leave no scent, like it's going to pour rain, or right after you leave, don't go in there and hang that stand. That deer is going to come in there. He's going to smell all around there. He's going to, and those 4.5+ year old deer, 6.5, even worse, they're going to know something's up.
Yep.
You hang and hunt. He comes in to figure that stuff out. He's getting an arrow before he can figure it out.
And I think
that's interesting.
It's interesting for me because I talk to a lot of guys. We run a lot of trail cameras, and it's exciting. It's when you're going to check that camera, you get one of two things happen. You're going to be stoked by the time you walk out of those woods because you got a big buck on that camera,
right,
or you're going to be let down. And I think people let the excitement get a hold of them sometimes. I usually let my camera soak for a couple weeks.
Yep.
If I can, I try to wait till you get some inclement weather coming in where I can get in, spray my boots down before I go in there. I think people think that when you spray your boots down, it's going to kill all the scent. It's just, I think, helps eliminate the scent.
Right.
But I don't check my cameras all that often. The deer that we ended up killing this year in New Hampshire, I don't know if you saw the video of it, the one I'm talking about in New Hampshire. It was on a field. He came in on a field, but that farmer was out there every single day harvesting corn.
Right.
He was out on the opposite end. So it was an area where we'd use that to our advantage, where we didn't know where he was coming from. We didn't know if he was going to come from where that tree stand was set up. We didn't know if he was going to come out in that field. So I just chose the option, we're going to wait and we're going to figure it out. We'll make the decision the day we're going to hunt. And it worked out in our favor.
Gotcha.
Sorry, I didn't mean to ramble on.
No, we enjoy rambling.
Sure.
Any type of rambling about deer hunting is fair game on the Big Buck Podcast.
Right. That's
what we encourage, actually. So you don't have to say that anyway. You don't have to apologize for rambling on about deer hunting stories. That's what we like. That's interesting that you say that. So the 2 to 3, I think that the younger hunters or the newbie hunters don't have this experience yet, and I think this is where, like we had discussed, I think that's where they make the mistake, is that they don't realize that hunting in the Northeast, you might kill a young deer, you might by chance kill a big deer, but generally speaking, if you're really hunting the way I think you need to hunt in the Northeast, it truly is a 2, 3, sometimes 4-year process.
Those deer that are over 3.5 years old are a different species.
Yes.
I mean, you really can't even lump them in with the rest of the deer herd. Those bucks that are 3.5, 4.5 years old and older act totally different.
Right.
The only time they're vulnerable is during the rut, or super, super early feed pattern. in my opinion.
Right.
And they don't mess up very much at all.
Right.
Like they're only vulnerable a couple days. I believe some of those deer are only on their feet during daylight during the entire hunting season in Vermont, maybe 1 or 2 days. And that's right at the end of shooting light or the very beginning of it.
Right.
They just don't mess up.
Right.
Even with that big blocks of timber and everything, they just don't do it.
The young deer, the yearlings, the 2-year-olds, they'll still make those mistakes.
Absolutely, and they pay for it.
But I think those big bucks are the ones that look and they watch that 2-year-old get pounded by a gun hunter, and they're like,
definitely.
I've seen that game before. I will wait until it's dark, and that's when I know it's safe.
They had a close call, and that's how they learned.
Right.
And
But if you can wait for snow and you can just learn about the deer, you don't even have to go in the woods and hunt it. Just learn. Take your game cameras. It could literally be a 3-year process, and I keep going back to that, and I'm probably reiterating it too much. But you want to have some fun.
Yeah, you want to pay attention to food source, rotation too. Where you see the deer when you have, years you have acorns, years you have apples, years you have beech nuts. All those will influence the deer in my area big time because there's not a lot of oak at all unless you get over towards the Connecticut River Valley, and it's just real spotty. And sometimes the oak is really spotty. There's not a lot of trees that have acorns. Some years there's tons of beech nuts, and there's a lot of beech in the national forest. So and some years there's no apples. Some years there's tons of apples, and they love to hit the apples late season. It's just you got to keep track of all that stuff, like where you find. If you had a big buck in an apple orchard late season last year, and he's still alive, and there's a ton of apples there this year, and you've got really cold weather, good snow, you best be checking out that orchard.
That's right.
Because if that deer's still alive, he's probably going to be right about in that same spot again this year.
Yeah, you gotta pay attention to their habits, and don't get discouraged if you don't get a shot that first year. Don't even get discouraged if you don't get the shot the second year.
It's supposed to be something that people enjoy doing. I mean, hunting is an American pastime, and I think people sometimes get what you say, the discouraged. People get discouraged. You got to realize you're out there, and it's something we love to do.
That's right.
And I absolutely am one of those people. I got ugly several times the last couple of years coming home. I mean, I hunted hard. And, my wife, God love her, she puts up with as much time as I spend in the woods. Maybe if I was a little smarter and more selective on the patterns or, being more observant, as Jeremy had mentioned, to the food patterns, maybe I wouldn't have gone through those times. So I think if we take a step back and we don't get stressed over something we love doing, it might be more enjoyable.
This is something that it just dawned on me just now, that my mental recovery time is lightning fast compared to where it was when I was 25. I used to get real discouraged because things weren't happening the way I wanted to.
Yep.
These days, I don't care. No big deal. If I don't see a deer, I'll work hard and I'll have a moment, man, I worked hard and I didn't get the deer I was looking for. But then it's gone.
Yeah.
And I'm on it. I'm right back to work.
I missed a big buck this year. It's on video. You can see it on our trailer on our website. It was actually the deer that Jeremy ended up shooting that afternoon. And I would agree with you 100%. I think 5 years ago, I would have let that beat me up all season.
That's right.
I really would have.
That's right.
And I actually, in this particular situation, I ended up hitting a branch. And, I was furious.
Right.
I was livid. I didn't want to have a conversation for at least an hour.
Right.
That, there was some serious emotion that went into after what happened. We hunted really hard.
Yep.
And afterwards, 3 hours later, Jeremy and I kind of conversed. It was, hey, you know what? That was my miss. Jeremy, you're up. We consulted. We think we know where that deer was going. He killed that deer. And I think if you take away being stressed or upset about it,
yes,
and you just realize that you need to be happy for your fellow hunters. I was so excited to be able to be there for him when he shot that deer, just as he was excited for me when I shot my deer this year. So
it becomes like it's not just a year, it's not just a moment of experience. It's an experience that's more worldly. It's global. It's something that is part of your life, and it's all these memories are just part of the experience.
I agree.
It's an obsession.
It's an obsession.
Yeah,
so you get to go again tomorrow. You get, it doesn't matter what happened the day before. You just short-term memory, go and understand what you learned from it, but go back out and do it again.
I'll tell you what, though, it definitely makes you appreciate when you do connect with a good one.
Yes, it does.
So
doesn't
those
it?
couple years when you're not doing stuff, and I remember last year I said, oh, God, I don't want to go through another year of this stuff again. It's been hard, and it just was like, you know what? I'd go through both of those seasons again just to appreciate the situation right now. Yep.
Right. Yep. Sets the stage for future hunts.
Absolutely.
Let's speaking of hunting,
one of the things we love to do, and a requirement on the show, is to tell one of your most memorable deer hunting experiences. So, guys, I want you to think back for just a little bit about a deer hunt you went on maybe recently, maybe a long time ago, but it's stuck in your head. And I want to go down and slow it down a little bit, go play by play for each of you, and let's talk about a deer hunt. And like we're right there with you, I want to be able to experience it with you. Can you think of a particular hunt? I'll give you a second.
There's a particular deer that I shot with a muzzleloader in the state of Vermont that I kind of touched on him a little bit earlier, but I've been hunting him for 3 years.
Okay.
And top of this mountain, there was a little hay field, probably 30, 40 acres, and it was on a dead-end road. You could drive out on that dead-end road and glass the very bottom of that field, and he would be there like 3 or 4 nights out of the week. The older he got, the more he seemed to be more visible in the summer. But he was a really big, clean 8. And the first year I saw him, he was 4.5 years old by the teeth when I ended up killing him.
Okay.
He was 6.5. But yeah, he was always an 8-pointer, had kind of short brow tines, and just had a real characteristic rack. You could tell it was that same deer every year.
Yep.
Just a little bit more mass each year. And man, he would from where he would summer to where he was during the rut down in the valley, there was a big apple orchards and really good thick spruce, and there was a pretty good doe group down there, probably 10 to 15 does at one time were living in this whole, 2 or 3 square miles, really prime habitat. But that buck was not down there in the summer. He was up on the mountain all by himself in the summer. He would just be down there during the rut, and he would rub the apple trees. He would rub trees the size of my thigh, and I knew he was in there, and just never got the conditions for the first 3 years that I hunted him. All the way up through November, really. We never really got good conditions. It was always warm and just rainy, and I never could see the deer on his feet. We never got tracking snow. And and from trail cameras and just seeing his track everywhere, he had a wicked hoof on him. I just knew that deer was in that area. It was just a matter of time before I connected with him. He just didn't like to move during daylight. And I'd never seen the deer hard-horned until the day I killed him.
Really?
And I talked to a woman that was delivering the mail in that area. She was delivering the newspaper, and she was driving around at like 4 in the morning, whatever, and she'd seen the deer cross the road right in those areas multiple times. She said, yeah, he's a big 8-pointer, really tall back tines. It's like, yeah, that's the deer. He's still right in that area, and I'd hunt him hard. It's just he was on his belly every second of daylight, So, like I said, that last year the year that I killed him, I hunted him hard that rifle season. Because I was just like, man, it's the 3rd year I've been hunting this deer. If we get a hard winter, who knows if he's going to die or...
Right.
No one shot him all rifle season. Got to be muzzleloader season. I was telling everybody I knew, I'm like, man, I got this deer pegged if I can just get some track and snow to kill him. Well, I got my wish. The day before the last day of muzzleloader season, they were calling for snow. I woke up in the morning, I couldn't sleep. Woke up in the morning, it was like 4 o'clock, and there's 4 inches of snow on the ground, and it's coming down hard.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I was hoping it came a little earlier than that. So I got all my gear loaded in the truck and hit the road. I'm like, I got to start driving around the roads that I know of around, that block up the timber the best that I can. It's still a big block of timber, but there's one road that goes around. If I can cut his track crossing it, at least I'll know what side of the road he's on, because there were 2 different sides that he liked, And so I'm driving around that block of timber, and it's snowing probably an inch an hour. It's about an hour before daylight, and I'm driving by one of the spots that I had gotten pictures of him and seen his track. I knew he liked to cross the road, and there's a deer crossing the road at the end of the headlights. And I pull up there, and I see him walk right across the snowbank, and, there's 6-8 inches of snow on the ground at that time, and he walks up into the hardwoods, and it's him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a 130-some-odd inch deer. There's not too many of them in Dover, Vermont.
Right.
And a big, tall 8. I'm just like, that's him. That's the first time I've ever seen him hard-horned, I'm like, well, you got snow on the ground. Boy, it's a different story today.
Right.
Drove the truck down the road. It's snowing hard. I'm like, at least I know what side of the road he's on.
Yep.
Drove the truck down the road a little ways, parked, waited for daylight. Got on his track. And it was so cool to follow that deer around. I mean, he went and checked out a couple different apple trees that I knew of. There were does there. You could see where he harassed the does for a little bit.
Yep.
None of them were in heat. He left all those does, went by himself. Here he cuts down off. And just to see how a big buck like that moves through the covers, you learn a lot by tracking the deer.
Right.
He never like walked into a big opening, or you knew it was getting towards daylight, and he's still on his feet. And I'm just like, this is probably the closest to daylight this deer's been on his feet walking.
Right.
And he's not going out of the really thick spruce, and his visibility was no more than 20 yards at one time. He's staying in using all the contours of the land to stay hidden. It's really cool to see, It's like, that's why you don't see these deer out of a stand. They use every single advantage they possibly can, especially when they're not dogging a doe.
Right.
So he's going up onto the mountain, and I'm like, man, there's a big bench up there, and it's just loaded with rubs. I bet you that's where he's going to bed. And it's thick spruce with blowdowns. And sure enough, he crosses a brook. I cross the brook. He heads up on that hill, and he's walking through some really, really thick spruce. And now the deer's slowed right down. His steps are getting real close together. Just like he's going to go, and he's going to bed on that bench. He's starting to browse right now. I'm within 150 yards of that deer.
Yep.
And when I track deer, I snow camo head to toe, and I got the muzzleloader ready. I'm going one step every 5 minutes up that track. I'm just like, I know we're on this bench. This is where he's going to be. And the wind was blowing pretty good, covered any noise I made, and I got up just up onto the lip of that bench, and I remember I could look for like 20, 30 yards. It was perfectly flat on that bench, and it was all stunted spruce, like 4 or 5 feet high. And I could look out across that flat, and I could see his track just wandering out through this open area, probably about 50 feet square. He kind of walked right across that open area and went right out and towards some blowdowns. Just like, I wonder if he's right in those blowdowns. And I didn't dare take a step, standing there. I must have stood there for, it was probably only 3 or 4 minutes, but it felt like 10. I just knew I was right on that buck. And something caught my eye to the right. And I looked, I was standing right next to a big hemlock tree, and I just kind of peeked around that hemlock tree to the right, and he's standing right there at 35 yards.
Yeah.
He just stood up out of his bed, and I just, in one motion, cocked the hammer on the muzzleloader and eased around that hemlock tree. Boom, shot. And there was a steep bank just on the other side of where he was bedded. So, all he had to do was stand up out of his bed and take one bound, and he was gone.
Yep.
If anything followed his track, So, boom, I shot. He jumped down over that hill, and I'm sitting there reloading the muzzleloader. I'm like, I just can't believe that just happened. I've been hunting that deer for that many years,
right?
And I was just like, I just hope that I hit him, because if I missed him, I'm never going to be able to forgive myself,
right?
But I was like, I got all day. If I did miss him, I got all day to kill that deer. So I walked down to where his bed was, and there's a pinch of hair on either side of his bed. No blood, but a pinch of hair. I'm like, that's a solid body hit. I shot him right in the center of the chest.
Yep.
And I could see where he bounded down off the side hill. I didn't follow his tracks like 30 yards, and I could see him laying there. And it was just, it's just the emotion that you feel when you hunt a buck that hard, and then you end up killing him. And
right.
It's like one of my favorite ways to harvest a deer in the Northeast, because that's really the best, the best opportunity you have is tracking a deer.
Right. That's tremendous.
And walked down the hill and just, pulled his antlers out of a top that was right there and was just cleaning them off. And I'm just like, man, that's
rewarding.
That's him.
That's very cool.
He was almost 200 pounds, and
wow.
He's that'll probably be one of the most important deer I'll ever shoot.
Right. You learned a lot that day.
Yeah, gotcha. It was pretty proud dragging him out of the woods,
So, Johnny,
Yep.
You've had some time to think about your most memorable deer hunt.
So we're definitely sticking with deer hunt.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Gosh.
Where are we going?
I don't know if it'll be as full detailed as Jeremy with history. Okay. Only because he'd hunted that deer for a while. But I spent my last job that I had. I was relocated down to Connecticut, and a little bit different than here in New Hampshire. It is you got to have permission. You got to have written permission to be on that property.
Right.
And there was one particular spot that I had hunted. It was only 80 acres, but it was a complete funnel. And you would get to, there was a lake in the middle of it, and there was a bottleneck between a bunch of different houses and a main logging road. So I'd always run a trail camera there, and the pictures of deer that I would get there, I called it the Muley Woods, because I had pictures of a deer. Both his ears were just torn open, but his rack looked like something you would see out on a mule deer. Yep. It just was ridiculous. I don't know what he would score for, but it's just a really cool, impressive deer. So I would always kind of revert to go in during the rut, going back to this spot, because I figured, hey, this is a prime location. Get one early in the morning, come through, or in the evening, or even middle of the day, checking for does. And there was, for whatever reason, this particular year, there was the field that had clover. The farmer, for whatever reason, didn't harvest it late in the season. So a couple times I'd walk through and I'd look down. There just was a significant amount of deer droppings out in this field. I'm like, well, I'd really be foolish not to run cameras here. And for a few weeks during the month, in the middle of October into November, it just was small bucks and does. And I really, the year previous, I did shoot a relatively decent 9-pointer in there right off that funnel. It was a deer that I had actually passed on earlier that year, but it wasn't really anything that kind of got me too excited. And I kept checking this camera, probably, again, going back to what I was saying before, low impact, every few days, because I could slip into that field and check it. And it just was does after does after does after does. And I just kept saying to myself, gosh, we're getting the middle of November. I don't have any mature deer that have been out in this field, but I just can't imagine with this many does out here that there's not a good one that's going to show up. And I had struggled that year in particular. It was actually, it was the day before Thanksgiving. I shot a couple does earlier that year, and my wife and I were actually heading back up to New Hampshire for Thanksgiving, and I was really pressed for time. And I just kept thinking to myself, gosh, this is an area, it's really easy to get in, really easy to get out. I just can't imagine going there, especially now with all of those does. The evening before, I had seen a few that were there. I can't imagine there not being a buck showing up there tonight. I don't know why. We get a cold front coming in. I just really feel like something's going to show up. And it was kind of like clockwork every other night that I sat there. What I ended up doing was, it was really bizarre. If I had one stand on the 2 fields that were there that I could really kind of only cover, one. If I was rifle hunting, there was houses kind of on one end of that field, so I didn't want to be aiming that direction. So there was a row of trees between both fields, and I actually just grabbed a 5-gallon bucket, set it up in the middle of those fields, and sat there just so I could watch. Yep. And like clockwork, one doe, next doe, next doe. And actually, I don't know for whatever reason, but the 8 does turned into 14 does that night. All right. And I remember sitting over there, looking in the direction where those deer were, and they're staring in my direction, but they're not looking at me. And I'm kind of like, what? I look in the other field, and all of a sudden I see 3 more deer show up that never came out of that corner. I'm just like, this is bizarre. Like, at this point, I was rifle hunting, and I look back at the 8 does, and they're all boogered up, and I look back, and I can see out of the bittersweet comes this big body deer. I really tight racked in the form in which it kind of curled into his face. And I just remember grabbing my binoculars, looking at him, looking real quick, saying, yeah, that's a shooter. He was about 100 yards away, grabbed my rifle and shot. And I don't remember what happened. Right. It happened so fast. It's kind of one of those things. It's instinctive. Yeah, but I remember walking up to him, and for me, I really didn't get into hunting mature deer until maybe I'd say the last 5 years or so. Yep. And it took a lot of patience and, passing on deer, and for me to be able to hold out that long, that was really one of the first good bucks. He only scored about 135 inches. He was actually at 13 points. And the reason that kind of kept me going in there was I had been shed hunting earlier that year, and I found a set of sheds that were 165 inches in there. Gotcha. So that for me was it was one of those things where, again, going back to my history growing up, I'm kind of a self-taught hunter. Yep. But for me, it was like, okay, this is kind of where I'm going to start. And I would say that was the most memorable hunt for me. And I remember going back and checking my trail camera, and I actually got a picture of me standing in that hedgerow and that deer fully broadside as I shot him. And I took that picture of the taxidermist, and I had him mounted in a shoulder mount, kind of standing in that upright pose as I shot him. That's awesome. So that for me, I think there's a little bit of, I wouldn't say jealousy, but, envious of, I think tracking deer in the snow is an art, and I know Jeremy's been really fortunate to do so. Yeah. I don't know if it has as much a history or story behind what Jeremy was saying. I know I excuse myself, but I would say for myself, that's probably the most memorable hunt that I've had.
Gotcha. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. That's really good. The snapshot photo of the shot. That's crazy. Let's talk a little bit about In Pursuit 365. You told me that the name and the whole project kind of got going after working with Tom Blaze.
Yeah, that's when I kind of developed the name. That was for a while there I was trying to think, if I was to name my filming company, if you will, what it should be. I'm like, well, thinking about hunting every single day of the year. If I'm not thinking about it, I'm in the woods scouting, running cameras, doing something involved with hunting every single day of my life. Right. I mean, there isn't a day that goes by I don't think about hunting. Right. So it was, In Pursuit 365. It just kind of that's kind of how it came out, and it kind of
Makes
describes
sense.
exactly
Right.
what we do.
It's a great name, and I can relate to it, which is cool because I think a lot of hunters can relate to that, especially the ones that are as diehard as we are.
Yep.
What's the goal?
Yeah, well, we just we want to bring something different, in our videos. We just want to capture the emotion of the hunt. Another guy that I really like watching on TV is Fred Eichler. That guy brings so much enthusiasm.
Yep.
And just brings the spirit of the hunt, the real excitement, the highs, the lows. We just want to bring that to people.
Gotcha.
We want to share that.
Gotcha.
Because we feel so passionate about it. We just want to try to find a way to convey it on film.
Yep. Yeah, I mean it's always nice to see it on film. There's adding a visual, especially if you know what you're doing with the camera, and you guys have been doing it for a while, and I can definitely tell that your skill set with the camera is as good as your hunting skill set. So it's pleasurable to watch. I've seen some pretty bad hunting shows. Let's be honest.
Yep, absolutely.
I think that goes into why we're, our mission also is we want to kind of separate ourselves from the rest.
Right.
We support everybody who's out there who's filming. We know it's not an easy task, but, when you're watching the Outdoor Channel or you're watching Sportsman's Channel, having some guys show up saying, hey, we're down here at, Triple B Outfitters and, guy dusts a deer at 200 yards with an AR, that's not what we're looking to do. I mean, for us in the Northeast, we really want to kind of bring the reality hunting to people. And, one thing that Jeremy and I have also discussed is trying to teach people what we're doing. How we're doing it, what our setup is like. We're hunting this bird today with a bow. We came in here last night, couldn't figure out where he was roosted. We winged it, we decided to wing it this morning, but we watched what he did here. Tomorrow we're going to do this instead. So just kind of,
the whole story.
The story behind
the whole story,
stuff.
start to finish.
Yeah, I think that really gets, it's a missed topic in a lot of TV shows.
I agree.
Out there.
I completely agree with that. Absolutely. Let's go into our 10 rapid fire questions. You guys ready for those?
I think so.
I hope so.
You giving them just to Jeremy first, or both of us? Or
I'm going to give you. I'll do Jeremy first, then we'll go to Johnny, and then we'll flip flop. So then Johnny can answer the first on the second question, and we'll just go through.
I was hoping I was going to have some time.
So
to think about
one
it.
of you guys is going to have some time to think about it, but I'm not going to let you.
Sure.
One guy just have all the pleasure. All right. What's your number? We'll start with Jeremy. What's your number one hunting tip of all time?
Number one hunting tip. It would probably be scout 80%, hunt 20.
I love that one.
Yeah.
All right, Johnny.
Yeah.
What's yours?
Oh, I thought you were asking me another question.
Oh, sorry.
I would say
question.
be as low impact as you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
You're hunting an animal whose sole purpose in life is to survive. Don't let them know you're in there.
Right. Yep. Awesome tips. All right. Next question, Johnny. We'll start with you. What's the one thing that you can't hunt without? We have these things that drives us crazy if we leave it in the truck. Like, God dang it, I wish I had that one thing. What's that one thing for
I'm
you?
absolutely probably one of the most ridiculous. I'm very superstitious. I have a pair of hunting socks that I don't know why, but I have they're white Nike socks. I was on a drop camp hunt elk hunting, and I don't know why I was doing it. It said R for right, L for left, and I kept putting them on the way that the socks told you to. And the guy that was with me said, that's your problem. You're putting them on the right feet. Switch them up. And an hour later, I killed a bull elk. So I'm very superstitious.
Yeah.
I've got 2 pairs of those socks. My wife laughs at me because if I see her grab those, I'm furious. And they have to go on my feet completely backwards. The right has to go on the left, and the left has to go on the right. So that's the one thing I can say that I cannot hunt without. And I know it sounds disgusting because I hunt a lot, that people are like, I do a lot of laundry. So I just got to...
It sounds disgusting to many people listening to the show. I am positive of that. However, if you've listened to this show before, you'll know, and you may not have heard this particular episode because I don't disclose it a lot, but my biggest thing that I need to have are hunting socks.
Yeah, there you go.
Now, it's not the most common answer we get, but I have baseball socks that I must wear.
With the stripes on the side?
Actually, not even the stripes, just black.
Okay.
But perfect for temperature and walking in the woods. And I mean, they don't sweat. They're just perfect condition. They're thin.
Yeah.
But if I don't have those, I don't feel like I got my game on.
I would never make fun of you.
Finally, somebody understands where I'm at. All right, Jeremy, what's yours?
Well, mine, I kind of had to retire my my good luck charm. I had this one certain Primo's hat that I wore. I mean, all through my 20s. From the first year I went to Colorado, I bought the hat out there. For some reason, I'd lost my camo hat or something,
Yep.
and I had this particular Primo's hat that I wore. And every bull elk that I've shot, I've been wearing that hat. And every
Gotcha.
and for my first big buck that I ever shot, I was wearing that hat. And it's kind of like taking a retirement because it was starting to break at the seams and everything. And I'm just like, I'm not throwing the thing away.
Right.
So I've got, that one good luck piece of equipment. Other than that, kind of equipment changes. I don't really have too much other superstitious
Where's
stuff.
the hat now?
That's in
Don't tell it because I'm going to grab it and I'll take it if you don't wear it.
It's in my game room, hanging on a set of elk antlers. Actually,
Nice.
It's that'll never go away.
All right, Jeremy, what's your biggest pet peeve
Biggest pet peeve, as far as
in life?
I guess just having, or one thing that drives me crazy, a pet peeve that I have is other hunters messing you up on public land or even unposted properties we have in Vermont, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, whatever. Other hunters messing you up when they know you're there. Like turkey season, if you park your truck there, someone comes in, parks their truck right on top of you.
Right.
You're hunting the same bird.
Yep.
You're going to do nothing. No one wins. You're gonna screw each other up.
Yes.
The bird's going to live, and both of you are going to be miserable.
Batting 1,000.
So
that
it's
that
the
bird
same
lives
thing with,
every time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every time.
And he just gets smarter. And the same applies for deer. People coming in near your tree stand. If I go in the woods and I see a tree stand and I know, especially if it's fresh,
right,
I'm not walking back in there again that fall at all.
Right.
And there's people that I've gotten walked by my camera 3 or 4 or 5, 6 times, and it's like, what are you doing?
Right.
You're messing me up. I just think that the ethics definitely, we see it especially during turkey season, but the ethics definitely need some improvement in the Northeast.
I'm with you. All right.
That's my big
Johnny, what's yours?
I'll slightly piggyback off that. I was hoping you weren't going to say ethics, so it didn't sound like I was repeating you. I think absolutely, for me, especially during deer hunting, if it's not mine when I walk in the woods, it shouldn't be mine when I walk out.
Right.
And it's very frustrating, as we all know how expensive hunting equipment can be, that when I'm running my trail cameras, that, yes, I've spent some money to invest in trail cameras. It's something that I like to do. Just because I like it doesn't mean that you have to like it.
That's right.
But that doesn't mean that when I get you on camera, you reserve the right to go horse around with my camera and try to pull the SD card out of it and mess around with it.
Right.
We're all on public ground. We're all allowed to be here. That to me is one thing when, if I have a mock scrape that I've set up and someone's in there and they're looking at the camera, I can't tell you how many times I've got pictures of people horsing around with the lock on my camera, and I know what their intentions are. Their intentions are to rip that card out so they can see what's on that card, take it home. Oh, geez, there's a good buck in here, and they can. We're all in it together. I just think the disrespect and the unethics would probably, hands down. This topic I could go on forever.
Yeah, we can go
about
on for a
this,
long time,
so.
and that's not everybody,
right?
But
no,
there are
absolutely. There's some
definitely
very
a
good
handful
people
out there that
Yep.
really, really push the envelope.
And I'm glad
ethics.
you said that, because I don't want
Right.
to. I don't want
Right.
people to think that I feel that everybody's like that. But I just think that.
But there's
ethics,
enough of them.
Yep.
All right, Johnny, how old are you today?
I am 31 years old today.
31
31
now.
Yeah,
No.
right now.
Knowing what you know today about life, what would you tell the 16-year-old Johnny?
Appreciate every opportunity you get of the things that you enjoy in life. Absolutely, without a doubt.
Okay.
I used to get pretty wound up, pretty stressed out. I've got some amazing support at home. I've got an amazing family that, they'd always say, just relax a little bit. I really wish I took that advice. And if I had to give the advice to somebody, 16 years old, enjoy every moment you have, because you have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow.
Right. Gotcha. Jeremy?
If I could talk to myself when I was 16 years old, it would probably be move west.
Move west.
For as much as I love the mountains, and I would pick a state that I could easily hunt deer, and it was just a short drive to go hunt elk, antelope, whatever I want. I'd probably move out of the Northeast and get into an area that's more in the line of what my passion is.
Right.
It's just there's so much more to do out west, and the mountains are beautiful. I mean, you go up into Montana or northern Idaho, there's 10 different big game species.
Right.
And I mean, there's excellent fishing. There's,
Right.
I mean, and the mountains are beautiful. I mean, it's not that it's not beautiful around here. It's just I really, really like it out west.
Right.
And I just wish I had spent more time out there.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
That's what I would tell myself at 16. Yeah. Get
That's
yourself out there.
Okay, Jeremy, you're at a hunting convention. You meet a stranger in the lobby of the hotel. They ask you what you do for a living. What do you tell them?
I'm a carpenter.
Carpenter.
That's what pays the bills. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Johnny?
I am a medical device sales rep.
All right.
I give them the rundown of that.
Gotcha. All right, Johnny, this one's easy. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
I had a peach, a banana, and a protein shake.
You're a healthy guy.
I am. I try to be.
All right. Jeremy, what did you have for...
I'm right along the same lines. We're both training to go out west this fall, so I'm in the protein shake and big bowl of Raisin Bran this morning, and
all right,
all that stuff. Eating like a horse lately. So
I had a cup of bulletproof coffee.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, you got to start out with the coffee to start with. Yeah.
All right, let's see, Johnny. You get your own billboard on the side of a highway. It's a blank canvas. You can put anything in the world that you want to on it. What does it say?
Dude, I have no idea. Man. That's never even a question I've heard anybody be asked before.
Right. It's a good one.
It is. I don't know. I have no idea.
All right, then I'll make it easy for you. What hashtag would you put up there?
Oh, my God.
All right, we'll come back. Jeremy, what do you got?
Hunt more, work less.
I love that one.
I got one. I've got one.
All right.
Nobody died wishing they worked harder.
Yeah.
Yes.
That would be.
We talked about that.
We
did.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeremy, for the reminder. I'm sitting there going, I've never been asked that question.
Yeah.
All right, let's go. Let's see. We ended with Johnny on that one, sort of. Jeremy, let's go to you. If I say the word successful, who's the first person that pops into your head and why?
Successful, especially along the lines of the hunting industry and stuff like that. I mean, I would have to go back to like one of the first inspirations into filming and in bow hunting and stuff would be like Will Primos.
Yep.
That's a person in the industry that I really look up to, and I mean, to see where that guy started, like what was he, 12 years old when he made his first duck call and stuff like that, to where he is now. It's just, he just seems like a great down to earth guy and hardcore bow hunter and hunter in general. And I just remember being a little kid, like watching all that was like a huge inspiration for me growing up. Is watching his hunting videos when I was growing up.
Yep.
And like it's pretty awesome.
Good one. Johnny.
If you say successful, I don't think there's one person, there's three, but they all have the same trait, and it's to pick something and go for it. And that's, my mother and father and my wife, they're firm believers that, they've started with core values, with nothing. They had a goal in mind, and they went for it. And I would say, I know you asked for one person, but I'd say those are the three.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
All right. What's a day in the life of Johnny Brown look like?
Oh man, more recently it's a little wild. I don't have a 9-to-5 job. I spend a majority of my time in surgery. I do sell medical device implants. So if I get a phone call late in the evening that there's a case, it's booked the next day, my whole day could be rerouted. So I do spend a majority of my time in hospitals, in the operating room suites, talking with doctors, consulting on, technical questions that they have. I also, it's a sales position, so I'm out visiting doctors and having conversations with them. And the one thing that I absolutely try to do to be part of my habit, no matter what my schedule is, I try to go to the gym every day and I try to shoot my bow.
Nice.
Those are two things that I feel that are extremely important, because although I know everybody has a life, and I'm a firm believer that nobody died wishing they worked harder, my passion in life is hunting, and it drives me. And I would, Jeremy and I both, we shoot very long distance all summer long, because we want to make sure that passion that drives us in life, you get a deer that's, a hard angled shot or something that, at 25, 30 yards, those long distance shots that we've been practicing all summer are going to make that real close shot,
right?
Kind of a chip shot,
right?
You, so
gotcha. All right, Jeremy, what do you got?
Well, I'm a carpenter. Been doing been more along the lines of finish trim carpentry past few years. So my day usually starts fairly early. Depends on what stage the house is at. If I'm trying to finish the house up so I can move on to the next job, or if I'm trying to figure out what the architect drew up.
Yep.
It works on paper, but we got to try to build this this walk in to fit in this closet and try to figure out logistics and create stuff. And I really like it. I really like doing the finished carpentry. I really like building stuff. I really like working with my hands. So that's my days, usually 8 to 12 hours doing that. And then kind of right along the same lines as Johnny, when I get done working, I like to shoot my bow a little bit.
Yep.
Try to go to the gym. Just try to unwind because it's going to be another one of those days tomorrow, And,
right.
I work as much as I can in the spring, summer, so I can take off as much of the fall as I can, and then it's right back. As soon as hunting season's over, it's
back to work.
Right back at it again all winter long, saving up the money and making sure all the bills are paid, and so I can spend as much time in the woods as I can in the fall.
Gotcha. All right, this one's a similar question, but even better question. What's a deer hunting day in the life of Jeremy Ballantyne look like?
Well, that would depend upon time of the year, the state that I'm in, and if it's in Vermont, is there snow on the ground? No, there's no snow on the ground. Okay, I'm working. Other than that, I'm planning my trips to go out west. I do love hunting the Midwest. In the mornings we like to hunt transition from food to bed, and hunting those bigger age class deer. We're usually near security cover. We like to rattle, and like one morning in Ohio this year, we rattled in 6 bucks throughout the morning.
Gotcha.
It was happening that morning.
Yep.
Other mornings you can hit the horns and nothing happens. It's just. But if I'm in the Midwest, I'm in a tree stand every day that I'm there.
Okay.
And if I'm back home, I'm either scouting, trying to find a buck that maybe is vulnerable that I can get on out of a stand. But other than that, I'm working and waiting for the right conditions to try to kill a deer in the Northeast.
Gotcha. Very cool. Johnny.
Day in the life of
deer hunting day in the life of Johnny Brown.
I really try to focus. I'd say early season, trying to figure out trying to take everything that I've learned all summer long from those bed to feed patterns and applying it the first week, 2 weeks of the season.
Gotcha.
I would say.
Yep.
Those are, in my opinion, as a bow hunter, those are your really critical times to be able to capitalize on deer movement.
Yep.
And I know there's obviously situations that change, but for me, those first couple weeks is really focusing my efforts on being as aggressive as I can.
Gotcha.
Did I answer that correctly?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. Guys, it's we've watched the sun go down. I feel like we're on the porch at deer camp telling stories and having fun, and this has been tremendous. Where can we find you online? Where can listeners find more about you guys?
Yeah, so we have a couple different things. We've got a Facebook page, just like a lot of TV shows or online shows. It's In Pursuit 365. So you could Google that as well, and you'll be able to find our website, www.inpursuit365.com.
Awesome.
You may see us. We've been fortunate enough to work with some very good companies that we've kind of partnered with and we're able to be sponsored by. So occasionally, if you get to that website of ours, you'll see on the sponsors page, if you follow those guys, you'll see that they'll be posting stuff and tagging us in that as well. So,
very cool. Now on Facebook, Twitter,
Instagram. We're not on Twitter yet. That's actually I'm really not I'm not that tech savvy of a person. We've got a great guy that we've been working with up in upstate New York, and he's all into it, and he's doing a wicked job. So that's the next step, is getting onto Twitter. But Instagram is, the little @ sign, I guess, is the thing.
Yeah,
InPursuit365.com or InPursuit365, and then Facebook is the same name.
Gotcha. All right. Well, if we haven't done so already, I imagine we have, because I'm the tech guy and I'm fairly savvy.
You guys are doing a wicked job. 200,000+ likes.
Yeah, this is fun.
Wasn't this fun?
This is great.
Yeah,
so.
We could talk for a lot longer, and I know you guys got families to get back to. So.
No, Jeremy and I really appreciate the time and you having us out here, and it was great to put a face to the name. And
it was fun to do an outdoor podcast.
Absolutely.
First time we've done this.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful weather.
Very nice. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you again.
All right, you guys are welcome anytime. I had a great time recording this, because we got to sit outside and record with the mobile podcast unit, like we've taken to ATA. But it was just a different tone. We got to sit outside, and it felt like we were at deer camp, sitting on the front porch just telling stories. And I think it kind of came through in the audio. So, but just great guys, just getting it done, and I love their passion. And a few things that they said. Number one was, if you're not learning, you're not hunting hard enough.
So that to me tells me these guys are into it. And I understood what that meant, because if you're just kind of, I'm going to go out, sit down, and come home, and that's all you do all year, then you haven't put in the effort that you need to understand and learn about the whitetail and their patterns, and not just the patterns. I mean, I'm talking about their specific patterns in your specific area, in your specific place where you're hunting. And that's what those guys are bringing to the table.
Yeah, take somebody with the drive and the want to be a successful whitetail hunter and be able to read the terrain and actually figure out exactly how those deer are traveling.
Yeah. And the other thing that I like is that they understand, especially in the Northeast, that killing a mature buck may not be, it's not just a 1 year process. It is often a 3 to 4 year process, because the buck's there, but they're so good at hiding that you have to wait for the snow. You have to wait for the right opportunity, and usually they're not going to die. We have a lot of deer that just die of old age because they're so good at hiding. So don't get discouraged if you don't shoot that deer the first year you go out. It might be a several year process, and that's how some of the most successful hunters in New Hampshire actually get it done, is they know a buck inside and out by the time they actually see it, but it's been a 36 or 48 month process.
Yeah, I can relate to that. It's amazing, really, once you finally. I'm not going to give my Chubby Tines tip away, Jay. So,
all right, well, let's turn to the Chubby Tines tip of the week then, Dusty. What do you have? The Chubby Tines tip of the week is sponsored by Morse's Sporting Goods. Firearms, used firearms, bows, used bows, located at 85 Kentucky Falls Road in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. Give Jim a call at 603-464-3444, morsessportinggoods.com. Your dollars go further in New Hampshire. There's no sales tax. Morse's Sporting Goods.
The mental preparation going into the season, Jay, will make you stay there longer and hunt harder. It's something that I work on. I know you do too, that when the season hits, that, the first 3-4 weeks, that first month, you're just gung-ho and you're just there every day. And next thing you know, your mind's starting to play games, that maybe you've got a visual on a buck somewhere that you don't normally see him. And you decide that in your mind it's playing games with you, and you decide that you're going to move your setup. And, that sometimes that pans out. But, as years go by here, that once I've locked in on a buck and I've got him on trail camera and I know exactly what he's doing, he's going to change just a little bit. But there's that factor that, a mature buck's usually going to do the same things pretty consistently, unless you just completely blow him out of there and mess it all up. By saying that, that's, getting winded, or he comes walking down the trail and spots you in a tree and he just stands there and stomps and maybe blows a little bit. A mature buck's normally not going to blow. He's going to turn and just ease out of the area, knowing there's danger there. But, kind of hang with the known spot where this buck's, frequently coming to. The rut's going to mess everything up. It's going to throw them into a different pattern. But they usually come back to their original pattern after the rut hits. So just, keep that in mind as you're going through the season, that maybe you get on this buck and he's coming down through the same trails, and maybe he's a moonlight traveler that's only nocturnal. But eventually that buck's going to make that mistake and come right by that daylight trail camera picture, right in that area where you got him in daylight trail cam. If he's comfortable enough to walk through there once, he'll walk through there again, and it'll happen. But you just gotta get that mindset right and go into the season that you're going to try to kill this mature buck. His pattern, and stick with it. He'll eventually fall back into that pattern once he gets through the rut, if you hang in there.
Yeah, that's a great one. And as Jeremy has said during his interview, that these big mature bucks, especially in New Hampshire, might only be on their feet in daylight hours during shooting hours 2 times or 2 days a year. That's it. That's insane.
Yeah, I believe that 110%. A lot of times that little food source is something that, I focus on, Jay, just because that they're just like you and I. There's times that you get hungry at a different hour.
Right.
And they got to eat. They got to drink. They got to eat. And they can only bed up so long before they got to get up. So just, keep that in mind. If you're hunting a food source, stick with it. They got to eat.
That is so true. We got to eat. and you got to stay on it. And that's it. That's all there is to it. Awesome tip, man. Very, very good. Chubby Tines tip of the week. Thanks to Morse's Sporting Goods for sponsoring the Chubby Tines tip of the week. And thank you to Jeremy and Johnny, Jeremy Ballantyne, Johnny Brown from In Pursuit 365 for joining us this week on the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast powered by USA Trail Cams. So, Dusty, where can we find you when you're not hanging out here on the microphone with me?
Shoot me an email, dusty@bigbuckregistry.com. Look me up on Instagram @ChasingAntler, or you can find me on Facebook, Chubby Tines Outdoors. Jay, where can the people reach out to you when you're not on the mic?
If you'd like to get a hold of me personally, you can give us a call at 724-613-2825 or shoot me an email, jay@bigbuckregistry.com. I would invite you to review our show on iTunes if you haven't done so already, if you're an iPhone or iTunes user, and also subscribe to the show, please. Do a search for the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast on iTunes, and then you'll find the review section. So leave us a review, a 5-star, if you love the show. You can find us on Stitcher. You can find us on Twitter, twitter.com/Big Buck Registry, Facebook, facebook.com/Big Buck Registry. And speaking of Facebook, if you are a diehard deer hunting fan, please give us a like on Facebook. But if you have shot at big deer and you'd like to have it featured in front of about 230,000 plus deer hunting fans and be famous for a day, all you have to do is go to bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck, and all the instructions are right there. And we will review your photo and put it on the Facebook page and get you some exposure. You can find us on Instagram at instagram.com/Big Buck Registry. And if you would like to become a patron of the show and earn yourself a hat and a t-shirt, maybe even a coffee mug, go to bigbuckregistry.com/donate. And you can find out how to become a patron of the show. Dusty, this has been fantastic, man.
Yeah, another great show. And, man, thanks to everybody for tuning in with us every week, Jay. We appreciate that more than they'll ever know.
You cannot say thank you enough to that. Well, I'm Jay Scott.
I'm Dusty Phillips.
And this is the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Can't wait.